The call came just as I was finishing lunch, a leftover casserole I barely tasted. My phone lit up with an unfamiliar number, but I knew who it was before I answered. Claudia never called from the same line twice. Probably thought it made her look clever. "Well, aren't you lucky to hear from me?" Claudia said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I just wanted to let you know I've made an executive decision on your little trust fund. You know, that money you were hoarding for some silly master's program." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Executive decision?" "Mm-hmm," she said, drawing it out like she was savoring every word. "Marcus and I decided to put it to real use. I reallocated the funds to something meaningful. A yacht. Can you believe that? Our family deserves luxury." She laughed like this was a game show. "You'll never finish that fantasy degree, Eliza. Time to face real life." The casual cruelty in her tone made my skin prickle, but I forced a smile she couldn't see. "You reallocated it?" "Oh, yes. Marcus still had access to that account. You know how brothers trust their wives. And I might have helped the paperwork along. A signature here, a tweak there. Nothing major. I know you won't mind." Inside, my pulse spiked. Outside, I stayed calm. Claudia expected me to panic, maybe yell. That was her game, fishing for drama. "Well," I said lightly, "if that's what you needed to do." There was a pause. I could almost hear her smirk fading. "That's all you have to say?" "I've got things to do," I said, letting a deliberate boredom slip into my tone. "Enjoy your yacht." Before she could sputter out another jab, I ended the call. I stared at the silent phone for a moment, feeling the satisfaction bloom. I'd been waiting for this, half expecting it. Claudia thought she was clever, but I had moved the entire trust weeks ago. I'd set up a private account under legal protection and hired a lawyer to monitor any fraudulent activity. Every one of Claudia's little stunts, emails, fake authorizations, even voice recordings, was now documented. I flipped open my laptop on the kitchen table and logged into my account. The trust fund sat untouched, safe and secure. A quick message to my lawyer confirmed the latest updates. Claudia's forged signature had been flagged, her attempted transfer recorded, and her phone call now became another piece of evidence. "Good," I typed back. I imagined Claudia sitting somewhere, waiting for me to explode, waiting for the satisfaction of hearing me crumble. Not this time. As I closed the laptop, I felt the tension drain from my shoulders. Claudia thought she'd snapped my dream in half, but all she'd done was hand me proof on a silver platter. I poured myself a cup of coffee, the bitter scent filling my kitchen, and leaned back in my chair. If Claudia wanted a war, I was ready. She just didn't know I'd already built the fortress. After the call ended, I sat for a moment in the silence of my apartment, listening to the faint hum of the refrigerator. I pulled my laptop closer and opened the folder my lawyer had prepared, a digital vault of Claudia's recklessness. At the top was the forged authorization form. Claudia had tried to mimic my signature, but the loops were too stiff, the ink pattern inconsistent. A PDF report from the bank's fraud department confirmed it was fake. Below that were copies of emails she had sent, pretending to be me, requesting a transfer for professional investments. And the audio clips. My stomach nodded as I played one. Claudia had called the bank, lowering her voice to a poor imitation of mine, insisting the transfer was urgent. I scrolled through the evidence, feeling both gratitude and grief. Gratitude that I had protected myself early on, and grief that my own brother had been the access point. The file labeled Marcus's consent stung the most. It was a scanned form with his name scribbled at the bottom. My lawyer had added a note, likely coerced or signed without understanding intent. As I stared at the screen, memories of my grandfather filled my mind like a sudden breeze. He had been the one who taught me how to handle money, How to read patterns. People show you who they are in the small things, he'd say, his voice steady even in my memories. Before he passed, he wrote me a letter. I kept it folded in the back of my desk drawer. I pulled it out now, smoothing the creases with my fingers. Eliza, never let anyone shame you for dreaming bigger. Protect what matters. You'll see the world change faster than people do. But don't let that stop you. Finish what you start. The words burned in my chest. He believed in me when no one else did. Not even Marcus, who had been my hero growing up. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from Marcus. You're going to love this yacht. We all deserve something nice. Claudia said you'd understand the fund being better used for family. Family helps family, right? I stared at the screen, my throat tightening. He had no idea what Claudia had really done. Maybe he didn't want to know. I typed out a dozen replies, each one sharper than the last, but deleted them all. Nothing I could say right now would cut through Claudia's charm. Instead, I chose silence. Let them think they'd won. Let them brag about the yacht that was never coming. The truth would hit harder when the walls caved in around them. I closed my laptop and sat back, staring at the ceiling. The ache of betrayal was heavy, but I felt my grandfather's steady hand in my decisions. I didn't need to scream or argue. My lawyer had everything ready. Let them hang themselves, I murmured, more to him than to me. I turned off my phone notifications, brewed another pot of coffee, and opened my urban design coursework. If Claudia wanted to ruin my future, she'd have to do better than that. My dream was intact, and I wasn't done fighting for it. By Friday morning, my phone was lighting up like a siren. Claudia's texts were coming in rapid bursts. What did you do? The transfer is blocked. The bank says there's a freeze. You think you're smart, but you're going to regret this. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the steam curl past my face as I scrolled through her frantic messages. A week ago, her arrogance had been impossible to ignore. Now, the tone was pure desperation. I opened my laptop and reviewed the case file my lawyer had finalized overnight. Every attempted withdrawal Claudia made, each flagged as suspicious, was neatly documented. There were also reports from the bank showing a pattern of large cash withdrawals linked to known gambling venues. The timestamps told the story on their own. Claudia, you've really outdone yourself, I muttered, shaking my head. I was still reading when my phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but I couldn't. I answered with a calm, Hey, Marcus. Eliza, what's going on? His voice cracked with confusion. Claudia said there's a problem with the account. Something about fraud alerts? The yacht seller is threatening to back out. I'm sure they are, I said evenly. The bank doesn't look kindly on forged signatures. There was silence on the other end. I pictured him, blinking in that slow way he did when he was trying to process something uncomfortable. Claudia said this is just a misunderstanding. She said you'll clear it up because it's family. I took a slow breath. Marcus, you have two choices. You can keep pretending Claudia is just making innocent mistakes, or you can open your eyes and see what's really happening. Are you saying Claudia... He stopped mid-sentence. I could almost hear the hesitation. I don't know, Eliza. She's my wife. She's also gambling with more than just money, I replied quietly. If you're ready to hear the truth, I'll show you everything. But I'm not explaining it over the phone. He exhaled, a long, defeated sound. Can you come over? Tonight? I need to understand. Fine, I said, but I'm not sugarcoating anything. After we hung up, I stared at the screen of my laptop. Claudia's digital fingerprints were everywhere. Her voice, her false authorizations, even text messages bragging to friends about getting what's owed. I closed the laptop and finished my coffee. The storm had hit, but I wasn't the one scrambling. Tonight, Marcus would see the truth laid bare. The waterfront condo smelled like new leather and ocean air, but the tension inside was thick enough to choke on. Marcus greeted me at the door with a tight, confused smile. "Claudia's in the kitchen," he said, like he was bracing for impact. Claudia was already perched at the counter, arms crossed, wearing that practiced grin that always looked more like a threat. "So," she said, "come to lecture us?" I set my laptop bag on the dining table without answering. "Marcus asked me here," I said evenly, "and I'm going to show him exactly what's going on with the trust." Her smile flickered. "Oh, please, don't make this dramatic. We were just trying to put the money to better use. Something that benefits everyone." "Forgery benefits everyone?" I asked. Marcus's head snapped toward her. "What forgery?" Claudia let out a sharp laugh. "She's twisting things, Marcus. You know how Eliza gets when she doesn't get her way." I didn't rise to it. Instead, I powered up my laptop and turned the screen toward my brother. The first document glowed under the kitchen lights. Claudia's forged signature attempt, the one so sloppy it looked like a child had traced it. "This is your wife's idea of authorization," I said. "The bank confirmed it's fake." Marcus stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. "Claudia?" "Marcus, it's not what it looks like," Claudia said quickly. "I just signed because you were busy, and we both know Eliza was never going to use that fund. She lives in Fantasyland." I clicked to the next file. Voice recordings of Claudia impersonating me played, her tone saccharine but unmistakable. "This is Eliza Granger," the recording chirped. "I'm authorizing a transfer for the yacht purchase." Marcus raised a hand, his face pale. "Turn it off." "Marcus, she's lying," Claudia started. I cut her off, sliding a printed report across the table. "This is a record of her gambling withdrawals over the past 6 months. Tens of thousands gone, including loans she took out under her maiden name. The yacht? It wasn't a gift. It was a desperate cover-up." Claudia's face hardened, but I saw her knuckles whiten as she gripped the counter. "I had a system," she muttered. "The yacht was supposed to fix everything. It would have been an investment." "An investment?" Marcus's voice cracked. "You mean like the $250,000 in debt you've been hiding from me?" The silence that followed was deafening. Claudia's composure cracked. Her hands trembled as she tried to glare at me, but her eyes darted everywhere but Marcus's face. "This is ridiculous," she finally hissed. "Eliza's just jealous." "Stop," Marcus said, his voice low but shaking. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and shame. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to protect myself," I said, "and long enough to know Claudia would have drained everything if I hadn't moved it." Claudia's lips parted, but no sound came out. For once, she didn't have a snide remark ready. Marcus sank into a chair, rubbing his face like he wanted to erase the last 5 minutes. "I can't believe this," he whispered. "I trusted you, Claudia." Her silence was all the answer he needed. Marcus sat hunched over the dining table, elbows on his knees, face buried in his hands. Claudia paced behind him, her heels clicking against the hardwood like an impatient metronome. "You can't honestly believe this nonsense," Claudia snapped. "She's spinning lies to make me look bad. Marcus, tell her you're not buying this garbage." Marcus didn't look up. "Claudia, I just saw the evidence with my own eyes. Your signature, your voice on those calls, the bank records." His voice cracked. "And the debt. $250,000? How could you keep that from me?" Claudia threw her hands in the air. "I told you. I had a system. The yacht was supposed to make us money. Rentals, charters. This was going to fix everything." I stayed quiet, watching Marcus's world crumble. Finally, I slid my phone across the table. "You should see these too." Marcus picked it up, his eyes scanning the screen. The texts I had uncovered were damning, Claudia bragging to a friend about marrying rich and targeting families with deep pockets. Her words were chilling. Once the yacht's mine, I'm set. Claudia lunged for the phone, but Marcus held it out of her reach. His face was a mixture of shock and betrayal. Is this who you are? Was all of this just a game to you? Claudia's bravado faltered. Marcus, I love you. No, he said sharply, standing so fast the chair screeched against the floor. You love money. You love what you can take from people. He pointed toward the door, his hand trembling. Get out. Claudia blinked, her face flushing a deep red. You can't just... I said, get out. Marcus's voice was louder this time, echoing through the condo. Claudia stared at him, wide-eyed, then grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. She shot me one last venomous glare. This isn't over. The door slammed, leaving Marcus and me alone in the heavy silence that followed. He sank back into the chair, his hands shaking. I don't even know where to start, he muttered. I sat across from him and pulled a business card from my bag. Start here. A divorce lawyer who specializes in financial fraud. She'll help you untangle this mess. Marcus took the card with a shaky nod. Our eyes met, and for a moment, all the years of sibling trust that Claudia had eroded came rushing back. You saved me, Eliza, he whispered, when I didn't even see it coming. I gave a small, tired smile. That's what family is supposed to do. 2 days after Claudia stormed out, I met Marcus at my apartment. He looked like he hadn't slept. His usual easy smile was gone, replaced by a hollow stare. I can't believe I didn't see it, he said, sinking into my couch. She fooled me. I thought we were building a life together. She's been building a pattern, I replied, setting a thick folder on the coffee table. And you're not the first one. I opened the folder and slid a report toward him. My lawyer's investigator had gone deep, uncovering records Claudia had worked hard to bury. Fake names, different states, 4 marriages, each ending when the spouse's accounts were drained. Marcus flipped through the pages, his hands trembling. Married? Under the name Claire Whitman? His voice cracked. She told me that was a cousin. It wasn't, I said. She left that man with nearly nothing. The victim filed a police report 3 years ago. Same tricks. Gaining access to accounts, forging documents, taking loans in his name. The story is almost identical to what she just tried with me. Marcus let the papers slide from his hands. He stared at the floor, his jaw tight. I brought her into our lives. I let her get this close to you, to everything Grandpa left us. I sat beside him. Marcus, Claudia is a professional manipulator. She knows how to make people doubt their instincts. You're not the first, and you won't be the last, if we don't stop her. His eyes lifted, full of a mix of anger and determination. What do we do? I took out my phone and called my lawyer on speaker. We move forward with charges, I said. Identity fraud, forgery, attempted theft, and Marcus is willing to cooperate. Marcus nodded firmly. I'll do whatever it takes. I want her held accountable for every lie. My lawyer's voice came through the phone. Good. I've already contacted the bank's fraud department. They'll back us up. We'll also reach out to other victims once we file. The more voices we have, the stronger the case. After the call, I handed Marcus another small folder, a list of accounts Claudia had set up behind his back, complete with screenshots of her bragging about working the system in messages to a friend. She's been preparing to vanish with whatever she could scrape from you, I said quietly. Marcus stared at the evidence for a long moment. Then he folded the papers neatly, as if creating order from the chaos. She's not going to ruin anyone else's life, he said finally. I'll make sure of it. For the first time in weeks, I felt a quiet strength between us. We were no longer her targets. We were her opposition. The courthouse buzzed with quiet tension the morning Claudia was arraigned. Marcus and I walked through the double doors side by side, both of us dressed in dark suits that felt heavier than they should have. He hadn't said much on the drive over, but I could feel the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. Inside the courtroom, we weren't alone. 4 other families sat scattered across the benches, each holding folders, evidence, and the same strained look of people who had been deceived and humiliated. Claudia had gone by different names with them, but the stories were almost identical. When they brought her in, wearing a pale gray jumpsuit, she looked nothing like the woman who once mocked me over champagne glasses and luxury purchases. Her usual icy confidence was gone. Her eyes darted nervously between Marcus and me as if searching for an escape route. The prosecutor began outlining the charges: identity theft, forgery, and multiple counts of fraud. Claudia sat stiffly, her jaw clenched, but I saw the tremor in her hands when the evidence was displayed. Screenshots of her texts, copies of fraudulent documents, and bank statements showing her trail of withdrawals and gambling losses. Then came the testimonies. A man named Victor spoke first, explaining how Claudia had drained his savings during a short-lived marriage years ago. His voice shook, but he didn't look away from her. When Marcus's turn came, I felt him tense beside me. He took a deep breath, stood, and approached the stand. His voice cracked at first, but then it steadied. "I trusted Claudia more than anyone," he said, looking directly at the judge. "I believed her lies, even when my sister tried to warn me. I let her use my name, my access, my trust, to almost destroy Eliza's future. Claudia made me believe I was helping our family when she was really setting us all up to fail." Claudia's gaze dropped to the table in front of her. Marcus turned slightly, his eyes finding me in the crowd. If not for Eliza, I'd still be blind to who Claudia really is. She nearly cost my sister her education, her career plans, everything she's worked for since she was a kid. I won't let her hurt anyone else. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand with a calm I didn't know I had. "People like Claudia don't just take money," I said evenly. "They take trust. They take the sense of security families are supposed to have. My grandfather taught me to protect what matters, and this," I gestured toward the evidence, "this is why we fight back. It's not just about one stolen fund. It's about ending the cycle." The room was silent when I finished. The judge nodded for the prosecutor to continue, but I caught Marcus's faint, grateful smile. For the first time in months, I believed we were winning. By the time the session ended, Claudia's bail was denied, and the other victims stood with us in a quiet, unspoken alliance. It wasn't over yet, but the truth was finally out in the open, and Claudia could no longer hide behind charm or lies. The sentencing came 3 weeks after the trial ended. Claudia stood in front of the judge in her drab orange uniform, a far cry from the woman who once flaunted designer dresses and smug smiles. The judge's words were clear and final: 5 years without parole, mandatory restitution, and a permanent mark on her record. Marcus exhaled when the gavel came down, his shoulders sinking as if he'd been carrying the weight of both guilt and relief for months. He didn't look at Claudia as the bailiff led her away. Neither did I. There was nothing left to say to someone who had turned lies into a lifestyle. Outside the courthouse, the crisp winter air hit my face like a new beginning. Marcus walked beside me, silent for a moment before pulling something from his pocket. It was Claudia's engagement ring, a flashy, hollow symbol of everything she'd tried to fake. "Here," he said, holding it out to me. "Pawn it. Sell it. Use it for school. I don't want that reminder anywhere near me." I hesitated, the silver band catching the light. "Marcus, I don't need—" "You do," he cut in. "It's the least I can do. You saved me from losing everything. You saved us." His voice softened. "Turn it into something good." I closed my hand around the ring. "All right," I said quietly. "Then this will go towards something real." That night, I sat on my couch with my laptop open, the acceptance letter glowing on the screen. The email header read, "Congratulations, Eliza Granger. Welcome to the Urban Design Masters Program." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. My dream, the one Claudia had mocked as a fantasy, was now within reach. The next day, I walked into a local jeweler with Claudia's ring. I didn't care what it was worth. Every dollar felt like reclaiming a piece of the future she tried to steal. When the appraisal came back, Marcus smiled faintly and said, "Enough for your first semester?" "Enough for me to start," I said. Later, we met for coffee near the marina. The yachts lined up in the water looked cold and sterile, reminders of Claudia's schemes. Marcus stared at them for a long time before saying, "I was blind, Eliza. She played me, but I let her. I wanted to believe someone like her could love me for me." "You're not the only one she fooled," I told him. "What matters is you see the truth now, and you're stronger because of it." Marcus gave me a small smile, the kind I hadn't seen since we were kids. "And you get to chase your dream again. Grandpa would be proud." For the first time in months, I felt peace settle over me. Claudia's lies were over. My future was my own again. I stood in front of the mirror, straightening my blazer for the third time. The reflection staring back at me looked the same. Brown hair pulled into a neat bun, tired but determined eyes. But something in me felt entirely different. Stronger. Lighter. This was my first day as a graduate student. The day I had nearly lost when Claudia tried to rip apart my future with a forged signature and a smirk. I thought about the call that started it all, her voice dripping with false victory, and I almost laughed. I slipped my grandfather's old watch onto my wrist. It had been his graduation gift to my father, then to me. The faint scratches on the face were reminders of his advice. Protect what matters, and never let anyone define your worth. I whispered a thank you to him under my breath. My phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Marcus. "First day. I'm proud of you, Eliza. Thank you for saving us when I couldn't see the truth. You've given me a second chance, too." I felt my throat tighten. For months, Marcus had been buried under Claudia's lies, and I had almost lost him to them. Now, he was rebuilding. He'd even started volunteering with a local financial literacy group, determined to help others avoid the mistakes he made. I typed back, "We made it through, Marcus. Grandpa would be proud of both of us." Sliding my laptop bag over my shoulder, I took one last look in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't just a civil engineer chasing a master's degree. She was someone who had stood her ground, protected her dream, and reclaimed her family's legacy when no one else could. As I stepped outside, the morning air felt crisp and alive. I smiled, thinking of what lay ahead. Design studios, late-night projects, the thrill of creating something lasting. My future was no longer a fragile hope. It was real, and it was mine. With a final deep breath, I walked toward campus. This was the first day of the rest of my life, and I was ready.